boy. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. My name is Leah, and I'm the host of this little show. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much for your listening ear. I very much appreciate the time that you are about to spend with me, even though it's not live time. But this is a little project that I do in addition to my regular old full-time job. I am a dog walker primarily. I also do dog training, teach private lessons, teach group lessons alongside my spouse, Laurie. Laurie oftentimes will be on the show with me and we'll chit chat about any old topic as it relates, I should say, to dog training, but she's not here with me today. So you are subject to another solo episode of a topic of my choosing. So welcome to the show. Historically, I've interviewed local Boston area dog handling professionals and we have chit chatted about our lives, dogs, and careers. Lately, I've taken a step back from that mission and goal, which has been working out positively. Thank you to those that listened and gave feedback to the last episode that I did about e-collars and picking the correct training tool for you. I mostly got responses from other dog trainers kind of doing a facepalm because we've all been there where we just don't have our equipment up to snuff. And sometimes it serves as a stark reminder and hopefully no mistakes were made and we all just learn from our mistakes and move on. So thank you for the feedback from that episode. One of the things that I love about doing this project is that it's relatively small, so I can make personal notes or there's kind of a more casual element to the show, and I absolutely love that. It's really, really fun. And one of the things that I noticed was this past Tuesday, we had a little rolling blackout on Facebook and Instagram, and I actually had more podcast listens on Tuesday, I think because of that, because I'm able to kind of go in and look at the numbers. So if you checked us out on Tuesday because you had nothing else to do, thank you so much. And it also kind of made me realize how dependent we are as business owners on these large social media platforms and how quickly the rug can be pulled out from underneath us, so to speak, if those platforms go kaput. So it kind of got me thinking a little bit more about investing more time in my website and also maybe in email correspondence with my customers. But for me, owning a small business, I have very easy access to my clients. And I think for medium-sized businesses and larger businesses, that blackout on social media was kind of a little bit of a wake-up call, right? Because it makes us realize how dependent we are on these social media platforms and for advertising and generating sales and even for client correspondence. And, that might not be the smartest move. So if you checked us out on Tuesday because you were bored, I very much appreciate it. And I don't have to start an email list for FitPet Boston Talks because all of you guys should have your notifications on and you know when an episode drops, either on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple. So there you go. And if you want to, go old school. There's an RSS feed on the website, FitPet Boston Talks. Check it out. Share it with your grandma if she doesn't like having apps on her phone. Or if she's like my grandmother and she has a good old flip phone. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about today is a little story. It's something that happened yesterday in the woods. And what I also realized was I have a lot of stories. I feel like I could just do a podcast every single day talking about weird stuff that happens while I am out and about in public. And these little lessons that I've learned along the way from these interesting things that happen. Because if you walk dogs, you know that just shit happens when you're out there, like that you didn't anticipate. And it's these little lessons that we learn along the way that ultimately keep our dogs safer and allow us to do our jobs over the long run. Because that really is the key if you're a dog walker. Is not that you have this list of clients or this amount of business per day. It's that if you can do it today, can you wake up again and do it tomorrow? And there are a lot of contingencies when it comes to how long you're able to do your job. And the number one is for me is whether or not you are able to keep your clients safe. So that's just very basic. And then number two, are you able to keep yourself safe and healthy in order to keep going? But something happened yesterday that I wanted to relay back to you if you're listening. Just kind of a little interesting story, and it got my wheels turning about a couple of different things as they pertain to my day, how I schedule my day, how I make money. And that's making money as a topic, we don't really like to talk about that. This is like a podcast. You came here for hopefully educational purposes, to hear some good stories. And at the end of the day, I walk dogs to make a living. So my clients are very valuable to me. And it's more than just like, I love dogs. It's like, it's a business when you cut right down to it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today too. So what happened was I was in the woods. I had just gotten to the location, unloaded the dogs. And as we were walking on the main path in towards where the single track is, I saw some dogs approaching me, and it was pretty clear that the handler didn't have good control of her dogs, and that's fine. I'm totally used to this. So she had two of the three dogs way out in front. She had pulled over maybe 50 yards away and was calling the dogs. They weren't coming. They started interacting with my dogs. Fine. My dogs are friendly. I quickly moved past up to where she is, and she said hi. I said hi. I moved along. No longer than maybe a minute after this, I hear a huge commotion. And in that length of time, a woman who walks a little wire hair type dog on a leash had also passed by me. And I got nervous because I hear all this commotion. I hear some screaming from a dog, and I'm worried that it is some sort of dog fight going on between the woman who had a dog on a leash and this pack of dogs. So at that point in time, I just kept it moving because I knew that I'm responsible for my three dogs, and trying to put out somebody else's fire is just, I didn't want to go there. So I just kept walking. So I walk for a little over 40 minutes, and I get back to my car, and the woman who had the three dogs off the leash had moved her car, and she was standing outside of her car calling for one of her dogs. So I load up my dogs in the car, and I walked over to her and I said, "Did you lose a dog?" And she said, "Yes, he is a hunting dog, and he chased after a rabbit and caught the rabbit, and he's been on that scent kind of in the woods, not coming to me ever since." So this is now a good 40 minutes after I heard the dog scream. So this dog has been blowing the walker off for 40 minutes, just walking around in the woods. And I said, "Okay, do you want me to give you a hand?" And she said, "Yeah, if you got any tips, I'll take them." So it was her exact words. So I said, "All right, let me get my dogs back out." So I got my dogs out, and this dog was hunting, and he was crossing over the access road, going to both sides of the woods. And he was going far away, but just far enough that he was staying within eyesight. So I knew that this dog was going to come back to the car. So, and I shouldn't say I knew that, but if he had free reign to go wherever he wanted, he was choosing to stay within a distance where he could just barely see this lady. So I took my dogs thinking like, all right, I know he's dog friendly because he came up to my dogs and he was interacting. So I thought maybe my dogs would get him to interact. But when my dogs went in the woods with me, it was pushing him farther and farther back into the woods. So I said, all right, this is not going to work. So my next option was to try to kind of cut him off at a pass. So he just so happened to go out on this little peninsula, and I asked her, I said, "Does he go in the water?" And she said, "He does, but he doesn't really swim. He just splashes around." I said, "All right, you stay right here at the end of this little trail, and I'm going to try to flush him out because the only way he'll be able to get out is by coming right by you." And she said, "Okay, cool." So she did that, and it happened. I brought the dogs way out into the woods so that, we couldn't even see her, but I could see her dog, and we moved towards her dog and it flushed him back out to her, and she was able to grab him and put him in the car. So this stuff has happened a lot, and I'm not blaming this walker at all. That's totally not what I'm doing by telling you guys this story. So here she is with 3 dogs that aren't trained, but probably have a decent amount of pack drive. This one hunting dog, he looked like some sort of a spaniel, if I were to guess, got on a scent, went into that mode. She didn't have the relationship with him. She didn't have him trained on any tools or anything, and was unable to get him back. And it turns out after she loaded him into the car, she tells me, I don't know what to do. He does this all the time. And he said, but normally it doesn't ever last this long. And I looked at her and I said, it just took you an hour to get him back because you lost him 45 minutes ago. And then I just spent 20 minutes helping you get him back. I said, you just wasted a whole hour of your day. I said, because she was basically like, what do I do? And she said to me, like, how do you get your dogs to just stay so close to you? And I was just like, listen, I train. And, I didn't go into it. That's all I said. I said, I train. And, she wasn't really looking for tons of advice or anything like that. We were just more shooting the shit because she needed to get into the car and go. Because by that time, she was an hour behind whatever the hell she was supposed to be doing that day. And as I was driving around, I was just thinking about the consequences of that happening regularly. And when I work, I am very conscious of time. So yes, I will stop and eat lunch, but most of the time I am moving when I'm working because I have this window of opportunity to work. So I usually leave the house at 9 and I'm done by 3. I'm not walking dogs late into the afternoon. Nobody needs me. I'm not walking dogs really early in the morning. Nobody needs me. So I have this short window of time to make all of my money for the day. And if I had an hour where I had something happen and disrupt my day, what is that hour in that prime time worth? And for me, it's worth a good chunk of my daily earnings for the day. If I constantly have a dog that's costing me more time during the day. So the consequences of having a dog that isn't trained, it's deeper than I might lose this dog. This dog might get hit by a car. This dog might get hurt because they're running around like a recluse out there and I don't have eyes on them. Like, yeah, all those things are really bad. But then from a financial point of view, it's like, and I'm losing money, right? So, and if it were me, now this woman didn't seem to be having that much of a heart attack in this situation. But if that were me, I would be freaking the F out if I had a dog that I was responsible for and I couldn't get him back into the car. So there are so many consequences of something like that happening. And I know how this situation starts. The woman probably knows the owner really well, and the owner probably accepts this behavior from the dog, especially if the walker tells me something along the lines of like, this happens all the time. It's normal. He always eventually comes back. It's pretty clear that he's probably a good dog. He's probably a friendly dog. He probably just is so untrained that nobody has put a parameter on him that the behavior that he's displaying here is not acceptable. And dogs are opportunistic, and the smarter ones are even more opportunistic. So if you have, a hunting dog that is used to sniffing out game and they have the opportunity to do that, unless you tell them otherwise, they're going to want to do that all the time. And when it's time to get into the car and go home, they're going to say, nope, I don't feel like it, and cause this huge problem. So from an owner's perspective, if you accept that type of behavior from your dog, please, I'm begging you, do not ask anybody else to accept that from your dog. You have to train your dog. You have to work on their recall. You have to build up an understanding and a relationship with them so they understand that they need to come when called. And then you have to enrich their life by allowing them to do those things that they are naturally inclined to do. So this dog wants to hunt. The dog's nose was down and he was tracking the whole time because he bonused out and found that bunny and didn't get it and sent him on, and it was like this huge game for him. And he was able to express himself for an hour. So if you're an owner, please don't put that responsibility on a dog walker. And if you're a walker, do not take on a client like this. I do not care if they are your best friend and they tell you that they don't care if their dog gets lost for 3 days. Not only is it bad for business, it's not teaching you anything as a walker. You didn't learn anything in that situation unless you trained the dog. And if you're not given the opportunity to train the dog because you don't know how to do it, or the owner isn't helping you figure it out, or you're not there yet, like your skill level isn't there yet, please don't take on clients like this, because it's dangerous and it will stop you dead in your tracks if something happens to that dog and you won't be able to work the next day. That's how I look at a situation like this. So anyway, that was my little story, something that happened yesterday. I've helped people find lost dogs all the time. Not all the time, but it happens, a couple of times a year, I should say, where I'll spend time helping somebody, because if that ever happened to me, I would really want somebody to help me in that situation. Now, if you're losing dogs on the regular, that's kind of like a red flag. You have to figure out, like, why is this happening and how can I manage the situation better? I'm not going to say that losing dogs is a normal occurrence. It really honestly shouldn't be, but it can happen to anybody. If I am walking a dog and that dog goes into a flight mode for some reason, it can be extremely difficult to get a dog back. So I'm not sitting here preaching like I have all the answers when it comes to this topic. I don't. It can happen to anybody. Does it happen to me? Not really, but it could. And if you are walking dogs that are, kind of very easily can flip that switch, I always would keep a line on the dog. I would train the dog on training tools. There's a flexi lead, there's a long line, there's a short leash, there's a tether to you. There's many different things that we can use in order to help in those situations. But nobody is immune to a dog switching into flight mode and it being very difficult to get that dog back, even if you have the most stable dog. That's why I don't walk dogs if there is even a chance of thunderstorm off the leash. Not even a chance. I won't walk them off leash. So that's kind of my parameter for that. And the same is true for like high winds in the woods. If there's high winds in the woods, a tree can fall. It can make an extremely loud noise. It can startle my dogs. And if they go into that flight mode, like, sorry for my friends, but I'm effed. So anyway, I just wanted to share that little story with you guys today. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and we will be back with you next week. Ta-ta.